Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about all things firearms policy, politics, culture, media, you name it. We're talking about it right here on Coffee with Craig. So please take a moment, like and share the program so that your friends can join in the conversation. Also, if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And in the case of YouTube and Facebook, make sure you hit that notification button. See, that way you'll get notifications every time these videos go live, and you can participate in the live chat as the program is taking place. Also, please take a moment and visit fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. It is the place to go to get all of your Pro 2A swag. I'm talking t-shirts, tank tops, coffee mugs, hoodies, stuff for the home, stuff for the office, even the masks so that you can go out and, if you have to go someplace where you got to wear a mask, at least you can make sure that you're sending a positive message. Now, the best part about it is every dollar that you spend goes right back into the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. So you can support the Second Amendment and you can look good doing it. That's fpcgear.com. All right, so, oftentimes right now we're seeing an unprecedented amount of, or an unprecedented increase in violence, violent crime, and shootings in many cities, many municipalities across the country. One such place where this is taking place is in the city of Philadelphia. In fact, Philadelphia right now is really only second to Chicago in the number of shootings and killings that have taken place in 2020 alone. Now, I was reading an article, or actually a commentary, in a Philadelphia newspaper that was actually talking about an office there called the Office of Violence Prevention, which basically has a budget of about $10 million. It's been around for a few years now, and, well, let's just say they are failing miserably at their job. And this particular political commentator was commenting on how, well, he felt like perhaps maybe these folks shouldn't have, the office shouldn't exist. So I want to get someone on the line, someone who we know is a supporter of the Second Amendment, someone who we know is very familiar with the city of Philadelphia, our good friend, Mr. Maj Toure of Black Guns Matter, to talk a little bit about this. Maj, how you doing today?
Hey, what's up, Craig? How are you? Good to see you, man. Good to be back.
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Now, tell the folks where you're at today.
Right now, I'm in South Carolina. We just finished the Solutionary Summit down in Atlanta. We had a star-studded, three different panels, three different breakout sessions. We had Judge Joe Brown. We had, Van Lathan, and Lieutenant Colonel Allen West also gave some video conference ins. We had Angela Stanton King. We had just a slew of people just sharing information from the libertarian, conservative, left. It's a hodgepodge mix of great folks struggling around ideas and coming up with solutions. So we did that. And in a few days, I have a class in Charleston, South Carolina. So I figured in between, we'd stop in South Carolina and post up for a little while. We have a RV that was, worked with, Brownells to make sure we got that out to the people. So we're able to stay in some places a little bit longer. So that's where I'm at now in South Carolina. Everybody, I hope to see you all this Saturday in Charleston at the Black Guns Matter event there.
Excellent. I've been to a couple of these, folks. If you get a chance to go, you definitely got to go. I promise you will learn something. Just so y'all know. All right, so let's talk about Philly. Philly's where you're from. So
Yeah.
Obviously this issue is not something that's new to you. In fact, you ran for city council in Philadelphia, right?
Absolutely. And
All right.
then in that run, I noticed how much waste and confusion it was going on in there. So there's so many things so for example, even to get on the ballot as let's say a liberty-based or third party candidate, you have to have damn near three times the amount of signatures to even get on. That whole process showed me a lot of bureaucracy and red tape that was very useless. And goes to the point of what's happening now with the Office of Violence Prevention. We're talking about $10 million a year. We should be seeing some sort of progress in that regard. So yeah, I'm familiar with the truncated and bloated process that is Philadelphia city government.
And by the way, that's not a whole lot different from other, how how shall we say? Well, I'll just say Democrat-controlled cities like Sacramento, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Detroit. I mean, it's not a whole lot different. Now, this specific office of quote unquote violence prevention, you know, I found it odd that when the city council asked for, well, what are the measurables? I mean, what are you guys doing? That the folks had really no answer as to what they were doing with $10 million a year.
So at Black Guns Matter, we raised and gave away about $360,000 to keep these classes going for basic firearm safety, conflict resolution, de-escalation, and a little bit of political education. And when I say a little bit of political education, I don't mean that to disparage or discount the importance of political education, but it's to get people to understand the political process and make more well-informed decisions, not telling people what parties to support. Now, in that $360,000, if I would have shown up with anything a little too fancy, people would have questioned where, say if I would have just popped up with a Bentley, and rightfully so. We've made magic happen with $360,000 across the whole country. When we came into this, we said that we were going to have urban demographics, by and large, black folks. We're going to be the largest purchasers of firearms in America. As of like March, April, that is the truth. The newest growing and fastest growing and largest amount of firearms purchasers in America, black folks. Um,
I'll tell you to that. Like we were out in, I was out in Detroit, and we did the thing with Rick Ector where he brought in, I mean, almost 2,000 women. I mean, it was just a hair shy of 2,000 women, and I'm telling you, 80-90% of them were black women. Were there to
yep,
shoot.
exactly. And these are the things that if I we've raised $360,000 and gave it away, which we did. We gave it away. We said we were going to do with the money. We're very clear on what Black Guns Matter has been doing with the money, and we made an impact with the. To be honest, $360,000 is pennies. Now, can you imagine if we had already hit our goal of $1 million and I couldn't tell what the measurables were? I couldn't explain to anybody what we did. When someone is to ask me, okay, we'll show some of the impact. In 2016, Philadelphia, before we went on a nationwide tour, we did most of our classes at Black Guns Matter, just at churches, on corners, just everywhere. Conflict resolution, basic firearm safety. We did most of that work in Philadelphia. When the stats came out for the violent crime rate in Philadelphia for 2016, that came out in 2017. Philadelphia had the lowest violent crime that it had had since 1979. Now, that's $360,000. That's way before we got to $360,000.
Right. I was just
And
about to say that. That was a lot less than 360,000.
right. And we were able to show a measurable. Now, were there other factors? I'm pretty sure there were, but it's not nothing to sneeze at. We concentrated on Philly. We concentrated on conflict resolution, de-escalation, and safe handling and manipulation of firearms, and the violent crime dropped. Since then, we have not had as many classes in Philadelphia because we've been all over the country, and the violent crime, the lack of information in regards to conflict resolution, de-escalation, political education has not been to the same impact or focus in Philadelphia. And incrementally, and up until this year, it has increased. That speaks something. Now, I feel bad about that because that's my city. I feel bad because I feel as if because I've tried to help the country, we've helped the country, but I've neglected my city. Right now, I'm in South Carolina. 2 days ago, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. Last week, I was in Chicago. Week before that, a couple of weeks before that, I was in Dallas. And so it's a indicator in regards to what the solution is, and it's a frustrating factor because we could have used some of those resources that they seem to not either a have been able to show any impact, positive impact with for the stated purpose, nor have they uh, shared some of those resources with the people that clearly have done something that works. I've had meetings with that office, and so maybe not maybe that office that journalist is accurate.
Mm-hmm.
If you're showing me that you've had $10 million for some time, and you've shown that you have done nothing with it, and you could juxtapose that against little old Black Guns Matter, and we've dropped violent crime in the city with a far smaller resource budget, then you're not doing the job right. I would be
Hmm.
very curious as to where that money's actually going.
I think that part of this and part of what you do, I think also speaks to a part of firearms training that people who don't like guns or people who don't believe in the Second Amendment don't understand is that a lot of firearms training is about teaching you that when you have a firearm, there's a responsibility. You have a responsibility because you know that that encounter can end in someone being seriously injured or in someone's death. And so things like de-escalation, things like avoiding being in such confrontations play a major role in firearms training. And I think that's a big I think that when you teach your classes, that's part of that responsibility. It's not just, well, we shouldn't be violent or we shouldn't hurt other people. It's we have a responsibility because we know how far it can possibly go. And I think people who hear that and people who take those classes, it creates that sense of responsibility that they otherwise don't have when you just say, okay, well let's do de-escalation. Let's just focus on de-escalation, because you have to show juxtapose what are the consequences if you don't.
Absolutely. And it changes. It's like a guy that, going to the gym. I haven't been in the gym as much over the last few months because the gyms were closed for some months and things like that. But when you're in the gym and you're aware, say even boxing, right? You're aware of throwing a 1-2, throwing 1-2s, 1-2, 1-2, 4. You know your conditioning. You know however many rounds. You know that when you initially started doing that, you weren't capable of doing it and you were wheezing. Now you may have had the heart to do it, but your physical conditioning was not to the ability that you could. Then when you can, you recognize other people that potentially most people can't, and it becomes a feeling of, I'm not going to get in a fight with you because you can't even throw 1-2s for a round or two. I may beat the shit out of you, and I don't want the responsibility that comes along with that. And it's almost unfair. When I'm concealed carrying, I do not want to put somebody in a position that they play themselves. This firearm is to defend life as an absolute last resort. If I can walk away, if I can de-escalate, that's what it is. Because I don't have time to be catching a case. They're gonna take my gun. They're gonna hold it, even if it's a slam dunk. If it's a slam dunk, clearly the bad guy was there. All of the witness
It,
accounts say it's the bad guy. They still gonna take you downtown.
it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and it's going to change your life even if you are 100% in the right.
Right. And so it creates a thought process when you train, when you are aware of the legal and ramifications or potential ramifications. It makes you, now I'm cool, bro. You got it. My bad. I didn't mean to step on you. Man, I'm famous for my fault when you stepped on my foot. I'm famous for that because I have a cannon on me at any given time. And I don't want my ego to cost me $50,000. And then even if I don't get brought up on criminal charges, because if I pull my firearm, it's absolutely go time, and it's to defend life. Even if I defend life properly, I don't want to have to fight a civil case. The threat that I may have neutralized, his or her family member says, oh man, you shouldn't have did it, and now I got to deal with civil court cases. So in training someone these things, it almost makes them more. It does makes them more reluctant to get into an engagement with someone that's not the absolute slam dunk. If Jason Voorhees is coming down the street and he's chopping people up, I'm absolutely going to shoot Jason Voorhees. I'm gonna take. It's going to be such a clean thing. I'm gonna take the picture. They're gonna throw me a parade. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
But if it's not me actually taking life, I'm taking life to defend life. I'm absolutely not. I have no parts in it, and I think that again that training that ties into violent crime prevention because you're retraining the mind of people that have generally, not all, but generally been conditioned by television or the false ego or whatever country song that told them, the girl said, I smashed this windows and all of that. Whatever those songs are in that culture, we shift the paradigm and we shift the politic by changing the culture. And that's what we do at Black Guns Matter. That's why in 2016, when we were concentrating on those cultural shifts, we saw a dramatic drop in violence,
Mm.
violent crimes in my city. And again, I feel bad, uh, not because we aren't doing the work. I feel bad because, this is my city that's now being impacted by this. Even Chicago, man, we did a lot of classes in Chicago those first few years, and Chicago's violent crime rate was on the decline for 3 years straight before 2020.
Mm.
So those it's it's the good with the bad.
Well, all right. So let me ask you this. So let's say you were put in charge of this $10 million for use in the city of Philadelphia. What would be some of the things that you would do with those resources? What would be your recommendation to the city council or to this department of programs and things that you would seek to implement?
Well, first I will put the $10 million on strict restriction, and every single penny would need to be accounted for. That's first, and I would also do that on $1 million scale at a time. There's $10 million here, but we're going to allocate $1 million of these people's money, tax dollars. You have to show an impact before we can spend you into the next part of the $2 million, or $3 million, or $4 million. There's no reason for you to have $10 million. They can be available of taxpayer dollars, but I need you to show progress. In France, doctors sometimes are, I don't know if this is true all across the board, but the doctors get incentives and pay raises when they can get someone off of smoking, when they can show that someone's blood pressure, some of their clients' blood pressure has went down. You are incentivizing good health. It would be the same thing for me. First of all, you don't just get access to the whole $10 million. Let's do it on a sliding scale. If you decrease shootings, you can get an additional, you know, $250,000. If you get some rehab, or some guys that are violent criminals to work for this department and doing outreach in the community with guys that are still in the street, then you can allocate some of that, more of that budget to that. It has to be a sliding scale of things that actually work based on results. Right now, we giving a $10 million blank check to folks that don't have an obligation to show any results, and you get what you pay for. Right now, we're paying for no accountability. So if I was put in charge of that, the first thing it would be, let's put $9 million of this away. Let's focus on this $1 million. Let's show some results with this $1 million. Then we'll start allocating $2 million. First thing is, we got to hire people that that aren't afraid to be on the street to deal with those conflicts,
Right.
to help those young men, and because by and large it's young men, to resolve those problems. But don't ask me for the next $1 million of taxpayer dollars until you've shown some results. That would be the first thing that I would do.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I think you just hit the nail on it. Part of it is just having someone who's willing to and can go and once again, who has the relationships or isn't afraid to build the relationships in the community to have these discussions. They know, it's funny. We've talked with the Sacramento Police Department here in the city where I live, and the interesting thing is that they know who most of the people who are involved in these shootings are. They know where they are. They know why a lot of these shootings are happening. The challenge is that how do you go and you build those relationships and get in front of these particular situations, and at the same time empower them to be able to address these situations in ways that do not include shooting each other.
Right. And a lot of times there's just people in between. I have plenty of felon friends, guys that have done local, state, and fed time. These are my friends, and they've turned their lives around. It's nothing but a phone call a lot of times, and sitting two people down by someone that is respected by both quote unquote sides. Could be so many times there's a miscommunication. I'll give you a perfect example. We taught one of our classes a few years ago in a alternative school in Philadelphia. It was called Yes Philly. We've actually taught there twice. And the first time that we went there, we were dealing with the young people. And the day that we were dealing with conflict resolution as a class, I picked two students that already had pre-existing beef that I didn't know. They had this pre-existing beef, and I just felt something was wrong after the class. I go outside, and one of the students is waiting for, and his crew is waiting for the other guys, and one of them was going to shoot the other one because of how it brought up some issues. And I said, listen, we're going to deal with, I said, we literally just dealt with conflict resolution. I said, one, y'all aren't paying attention to your situation. I was like, y'all not even paying attention to the fact that that police officer is circling around the school, around the block that y'all are at every 5 to 10 minutes, 5 to 8 minutes. Y'all not paying attention to that. So I know everybody in here got their gun. I got my gun too. The thing is, this is dumb, and I bet you I can find out where the miscommunication is. I sat outside for about 30 minutes with these guys, right? The disagreement was based on one guy thought that he said something about this girl that he used to date. He wasn't even with the girl anymore.
Right.
Not even with the girl. So you're about to shoot him. His friends are about to shoot you over this girl that neither one of you are even dealing with anymore. And that's not what he said. So the vast majority of these conflicts are based in miscommunication.
Yeah.
And having somebody listen, I don't give a fuck about what kind of gun you got. You don't shoot better than me because one, you're not even supposed to have the gun based on age. You're 16,
Right.
you're 17, you're 19, whatever. Not supposed to in that sense, but based on that law. Now, my point in saying that is this. I don't care. I'm from the same place you from. Y'all know what time it is. That's why you listening to me in the first place type of vibe. When we have more men that are willing to deal with those young people,
Mm-hmm.
you will see a dramatic decrease in violent crime. But if you have somebody that the hood don't respect, you got somebody in the office downtown. Again, I went to the Office of Violence
Right.
Prevention. These young people don't even know where it's at. The Office of Violence Prevention needs to come outside. They're
I'm,
tucked into the office.
yep. I'm gonna throw something out there to you, and it's a conversation I've had. And it's a little off topic when it comes to guns, but here's my point is in particular in our community, it's like we measure our level of success by how far we move away from our people. It's
Mhm.
hard it's hard to have credibility in 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 Chicago, in Detroit, in some of these communities in the area where I live, if if you move out, well then you just a brother who drives in during the day, even if you work in the city, even if you
Right.
work there. The fact I was part of the African American redistricting project a couple of years back, and I got all these politicians talking about, well, the black community, the black community, the black community, and I said, whoa, whoa. I said, first of all, what is the black community in this particular area? And they named off neighborhoods. Okay, so do me a favor. Raise your hand if you live in one of those neighborhoods.
Right.
And my hand was the only hand raised in the room. My point is that we've got to try and find a way to be active parts of these kids' lives. And part of that is simply being in the community. That
Right.
establishes credibility. We need law enforcement officers that live in the community. We need teachers who live in the community. We need business owners, people who own the businesses in the community. It'd be nice if you lived in the community. We
Right.
need the sort of housing in these communities that are going to make people who earn those sorts of incomes want to live in those communities. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Right.
I got off on a tangent, but I hear what I said to say, I hear what you're saying.
Yo, 100%. Because it's even if you do, let's say if you do have a house in Philly, you live across the bridge in Jersey, and you're there. If you can be respected, but we have to see you. We
Right.
have to
There you go.
know of
There you
your
go.
deeds, your actions, your strength, your warrior spirit. And we also got to know that you bout that action if need be, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not the way that you actually trying to go with it. And we have to respect your evolution, you
Right.
know. And so, but we again, you can't. The youngins ain't gonna respect it if they never see you. I did an Instagram. I was doing an Instagram live every so often. Guys in the Second Amendment community, like haters, not like guys doing actual work, will say things like, "Yeah, they ran Maj out of Philly. That's why he's not there anymore." And I'm like, well, one, I live in Philly. Two, I'm at Broad and Lehigh right now.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm doing an IG live, I promise you, a young guy rolled up on me. He was like, "Man, you probably don't even remember me, do you?" I'm like, "No, I remember you. You were a person. You when you were like 12 or 13, I used to see you on the trains, you and the youngins that you were with, and I would give y'all math questions. And if you got the math question right, I would give you a free DVD. He was like, yo, man, it's crazy that you remember that. And he literally got on my Instagram live and was like, man, this dude used to stop us from doing little corny stuff on the train or pull us to the side. He wouldn't really be trying to preach to us, but he'd be like, yo, man, don't do that. Math will always get you paid. You ain't got to jump over a turnstile. That means that you ain't selling nothing to make no money, which means you're going to jump this turnstile. Your mom might get hit with a $200-300 ticket, and your mom and you ain't trying to spend your mom. So, man, let me give you some movies to sell. Let me give you some waters to sell. Let me give you some incense to sell. These are things that I used to do. And this was, years ago, maybe 10 years ago at this point. But this young man saw me and still on the block, still abroad in Lehigh. And don't get it twisted, I travel the world. I go wherever I want to. I also just want to be a pillar in my community. You know what I'm saying? I'm always
Right.
have a home in Philadelphia. I love Philly, and so if we keep that mentality now, we generate more resources. I mean, it's what Rick Ross raps about. Buy back the block. It's what Nipsey Hussle was doing. Buy
Mm-hmm.
back your community. Own the
Right.
community that you live in, and then you'll start to see economic advantages rise and violent crime pummel because people know who's doing it. You own the building. Your
Right.
man owned that business. Yo, that's my cousin's barbershop. Yo, that's my cousin's factory. Yo, this is my cousin's meat processing plant. This is my uncle's post office, shipping service or whatever, packaging service. When you do that, there's an equity in the community,
Right.
and these are all things that this $10 million should have been going to.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to reach out to, if I'm not mistaken, uh, Kenyatta Johnson is on that board for that money, and I really want to reach back out to him
Mm-hmm.
because I had a meeting. I had a meeting with those guys, not Kenyatta Johnson, but those guys that were at the Office of Violence Prevention. I went down there, told them what we were doing, made myself available. Never got a response from them. So I think it's about high time to try again, especially with Philadelphia now being second in violent crime and
Right.
shootings, only to Chicago. Even Chicago, we got to get some of the OGs down there and
Yeah.
redouble down on our efforts because that's what's necessary to make these communities better again.
Well, hey, as we get ready to wrap up, do me a favor. Let the folks know just a little bit more about, okay, exactly what is Black Guns Matter? What do you do? And then how can they follow the work that you do there at Black Guns Matter?
Yeah, Black Guns Matter. We are a basic entry level. We're not talking about the Coriolis effect, twist rates. We're not talking about melanite coating. We're not talking about any. And if you don't know what any of that means, then Black Guns Matters for you. We are entry level, basic firearm safety training, handling, conflict resolution, de-escalation. We do free classes all around the country. They're free to you, but we raise the money through our crowd funding efforts to make sure that we remove the financial barrier to entry so everyone that wants to come learn very basic entry level stuff, we get you on point. That's what we do. Our GoFundMe, this is how we do it. It's gofundme.com/, Black Guns Matter. If you are interested in supporting, that's where you can do it. If you're interested in asking some questions, you can follow us on Twitter, Black Guns Matter, BLKGUNSMTTR. You can follow me, Maj Toure, on all of the social media platforms. You can ask whatever questions. If you're dealing with some things, if you are a firearms owner and you're going through some stress, Corona's going up, suicide rates are up, DM me. I'll send you my phone number. Let's have a conversation. If you are a veteran, on average, there's about 22 veterans that commit suicide every day in our nation. If you're a veteran, reach out to me. Let's chop it up. If I'm in your town, let's have a drink. Let's have a cigar. Let's chop it up. Let's talk about it. I would rather you burden me, not really burden, I'm using the air quotes,
Right.
burden me with, whatever those issues are. And at least we're dealing with those issues as we're here rumbling, as opposed to you making a decision that's irreversible. So on all of those platforms and ways that, I want to make myself a service to everyone. I'm here. I'm a public servant. I'm here to serve. I work for y'all. I don't got no boss. I got 300 million bosses. So saying this to say, man, that's how you can contact us. That's how you can support. If you want to commit to our Patreon, patreon.com/, Black Guns Matter, and just contact us if you got information, if you want to help, if you want to be helped. If you're a beginner, you bought a firearm in this government overreach, as you saw the contradictions of the state. them letting out pedophiles and rapists and then locking up people that are trying to run their businesses, and then told you you had to wait to buy a gun. You finally got the gun. You want to get some training. Hit us up. If we can't plug with you, we can't link with you directly. We can plug you with some folks. And lastly, you need to be following and supporting Firearms Policy Coalition to overturn these archaic, unconstitutional, anti-gun, anti-freedom legislation. Lawsuits need to happen.
Yep.
And the folks over at Firearms Policy Coalition are top notch at suing local, state, and federal governments for their, overreach. Lawyers speak a different language when it comes to a politician, and it puts a different type of fear in them. So Firearms Policy Coalition absolutely needs your support. If you agree with anything that I'm saying today, you need to become a member and or supporter of Firearms Policy Coalition.
Maj, thank you so very much. I so much appreciate that. I even asked you to do that. So, but thank you. I appreciate it. Those are actually very, very kind words, and I appreciate your support. And I'm glad that we can do all we can do to support you in the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Craig.
Right.
I appreciate you, my brother.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Maj Toure of Black Guns Matter. All right, folks. Well, hey, that's going to be it for this edition of Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and telling your friends about the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.